Hello, everyone, and welcome. Very excited to have you here today. I'm Nick Scarsi. I'm the Political Operations Director here at NC Realtors, and I am the staff liaison for the RCA at NC Realtors. This is the inaugural quarterly RCA webinar, and I'm excited to be bringing it to you today. We're keeping a list of awesome speakers and topics, so always feel free to reach out with new ideas. We're also going to be having a brand new RCA track during our winter leadership meetings with 3 separate sessions starting at 9 a.m. with our RCA commercial committee meeting, ending at 12:30 with additional programming, including a 2021 market forecast from NAR, more information about the NAR RCA accreditation program, a legal Q&A, and more. We are looking for questions ahead of time for the legal Q&A, so feel free to submit those ahead of time. We already have some great speakers lined up, and we're looking forward to a great 2021. Today, we're going to spend some time learning about how the green building trend is shifting from commercial applications to the residential market, as many home buyers are now looking for green home office solutions. Before we get started, I would like to let you know that we are recording today's session and that we will make it available to all of you by the end of the week. Feel free to submit your questions through the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to those as well. So with that, I would like to introduce you to today's speaker, Jessica McNaughton, President of Cara Green. Jessica, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. I had to make sure I took myself off mute, which is the cardinal sin of Zoom calls these days. That and children interrupting. But yeah, so I'm happy to be here and happy to be the inaugural presenter at your event.
Great. All right, take it away.
All right, so I'm Jessica McNaughton. I'm with Cara Green. We are a building materials distributor in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we have a showroom here where we have a bunch of sustainable, healthy building materials. So healthy alternatives to conventional building materials. We've been here for about 10 years. So we've been doing this for a long time before healthy became kind of related to COVID. It was more about creating healthy spaces where, you know, you can live and work and have a pleasant experience, because there's a lot of background that tells you that healthy buildings make for more productive, more efficient employees. So that is true for a workplace, and that is true for a home. So now that the employees have kind of migrated to the home, you know, health kind of has a new connotation in that regard. So I have a few slides for you. I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Okay. All right, we're going to get to the beginning of the slide, if you can bear with me. Okay, don't need my technical. Hang on one second here. Let me just get to the top. Okay. Sorry, guys. There we go. All right. All right, ready. All right, so Cara Green, Healthy Building Materials, that's our company again. We're in Raleigh, North Carolina. If you ever want to stop by, get samples, see our showroom, just reach out to us. So as I mentioned, we are bringing sustainable building materials to market. We work with a lot of architects and designers to educate them on the materials. We try to find the best of emerging materials and stay on top of those trends. We have several courses on education. We give courses on biophilic design, which is incorporating nature into a space. We educate on LEED building, Fitwell standards, you know, all the new building standards, you know, and all the different ways you can incorporate building materials. So we have a list of all the different, you know, education sessions and webinars that we do on our website as well. So working from home, I'm guessing that most of you, you know, used to work out of offices and now have been relegated to the home, much like myself. And, you know, what we've been hearing is this is likely here to stay. So not everyone will be working from home, can work from home, but there is going to be some hybrid format. And when everyone got back to home to work, you know, they looked at their spaces and they said, is this really the most conducive space for me to work from home? So I know myself, I have to watch some of my kids do their schoolwork or they're on YouTube the whole time. So I had to redesign my office so that I could see basically, you know, what the kids were working on. So we really had to relook at our spaces and make sure that those places were designed the most fruitful way for all of us to work from home. So the home that you guys sell now became increasingly important because it became a permanent or, temporary or semi-permanent workspace. So the workspaces were already shifting. So like in my office, we have a conference room that we designed to look like a space in nature. So there's clouds suspended from the ceilings made from acoustic material, and there's a green grass looking carpet, and a lot of, organic materials around to create that sort of soothing space. That's very common with these building standards like LEED, the WELL building standard, and the Fitwel building standard. Any information that you want on those, like I said, you can ask us any questions. We have full presentations on these that we're happy to send to you guys. You can become an accredited professional in any of these building standards, but typically they're commercial building standards, while, LEED does have a LEED for homes, and WELL and Fitwel do have, ways to incorporate that into residential spaces. But, health was top of mind, right? Everyone bought a UV filter or a HEPA filter, and, we've always put kind of plants in our spaces and so on, knowing that that's a healthy thing. So biophilic design has become very prevalent. And biophilic design is our innate need to associate with nature. So when you go outside and you take a 20-minute walk, your entire body calms down. It just releases, hormones and chemicals that soothe you. So bringing plants and things like that into the space are naturally something that we try to do. But there's other things, like even pictures, like a picture of a lake, fish, green, just the color green in a space can also, create those, sort of soothing natural elements. So that's become very popular in the workspace. And now those requirements are shifting to our homes. Not just because people are working from home, but just because people are starting to demand that. So they want things to be beautiful, but they want to know the backstory with some of the materials that you're using. People are getting really internet savvy, and they are researching things. So they are researching, building materials, and it's possible they know more about the building materials than either, you or the seller or the person who's working with them, a mill worker. So consumers are getting very, very savvy. And, the idea of this healthy home is really one that, you're safe in it. You want that healthy home for your children. You want that healthy home for you. And again, the definition of health has got a lot of focus lately, but we're really looking at it more in almost like a mental and physical health. Also, the demographic of the home buyer is changing. So you are getting much more environmentally conscious buyers hitting the market. So you got people that graduated from school 15 years ago when environmental studies was a big thing and everyone had to take a class, and they're all aware, sometimes hyper aware. So green is more than just Energy Star ratings. So for the longest time, what was really recognized was, an arrow pointing down with a dollar savings on a yellow sticker. That's what was seen as green or energy efficient. That definition is really changing. Healthy homes are the new green. That word green got really, people got bored with it. They called it greenwashing. People were making claims that weren't true. But now this idea of healthy products, things that make your life better, your home safer, your kids healthier and safer, that is very, very popular, and that is what people are demanding. And then chemical sensitivity is a thing. So there is a lot of people out there that are now, learning and finding out. I mean, the same way you can do that, what's that 21 test where you can figure out your genetics or whatever? 23andMe. Yeah. It's, it's that same thing. People are able to, find out what things they might be allergic to or sensitive to, and they're really, starting to demand materials that don't have those toxic elements in them. So home buyers are going to start asking these types of questions, and we want you guys to be equipped to answer them. So how do we design first, and then ultimately sell homes to fit the changing needs of these eco-savvy clients? So I'm going to present some materials that you guys are going to see as the de facto standard, and that is absolutely true. And I am not saying they are bad. I'm saying these are the things that consumers are going to be aware of, and they may press you on and ask you about, and I'm just trying to give you the tools to be able to answer some of those questions. So instead of granite, you have a customer that comes in and says, I don't want granite. It's mined from the earth. It's got silica in it. People that cut granite are dying all over the place. I saw an article where Aaron Brockovich is railing against the stone industry. It has to be sealed. I don't want these toxic sealants. I have to seal it every year. I'm not going to seal it every year. I can't put it outside. It's going to get cracked if it's next to something too hot, too cold. Or quartz. Quartz is very popular right now. It's also mined from the earth, and people are going to push you on the very, very high silica content, 90% plus in quartz. It gets airborne, people breathe it in, they get an incurable lung disease called silicosis, and it is the subject of so many class action lawsuits that if you Google silicosis 4 years ago, what would come up with was miners in West Virginia in the 40s. And now the first 5 or 6 links are for law firms in the US. So quartz is getting a lot of negative attention right now. So just be aware if your clients start asking you about it. There are great, reputable, very responsible quartz companies out there, but know who they are, because it is not all of them. A lot of quartz comes from unregulated countries like Vietnam or Turkey. It used to be China, but all that material is tariffed now. But just be aware if you're recommending a brand that you're choosing a reputable one. And again, we can help you with that. Quartz, you can't use it outside. It'll yellow due to the resins in it. It has a petroleum-based resin that holds all the quartz particles together. If that is out in UV light, it will yellow. And again, it's highly commoditized. This is a product that, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vendors all over the world getting into this market. So consider sintered stone. So this is the material when your client wants something that nobody else has. This is the material. We carry a brand called Laminate, but what it is, it's basically man-made volcanic rock. So instead of using those petroleum resins as a binder, this is bound together by vacuum, pressure, and compression. So it's just a bunch of minerals fused together and then heat fired so they bond together. Only minerals. You can take these materials and recycle them at the end of their life. They're just minerals. They came from the earth. They can go right back into it. A lot of the material, the brand we have, Laminate, has a whole line that has absolutely no silica in it, and the rest of it is very low silica. This you can use inside, you can outside, you can use it as a pool. You can use it for pool coping, you could use it for the bottom of the pool. It's not going to etch, it's not going to scratch, it's not going to stain. You can use it for extreme cold, extreme heat. You can put it, we have a big green egg in it. You can put a wine chiller in it. It just won't see that thermal shock. So it's really, really one of the best materials you can get right now. And the main thing with sintered stone is that you need to make sure that you're working with a reputable fabricator, because any material that's new to the market, you want to make sure that they know how to work with it. We've spent a lot of time educating the fabricators in this area to make sure they know how to work with these. But if you really want to give your client an alternative to conventional granite and quartz, this is the material you should probably be looking at. It's also very easy to clean. It has properties called hydrophilic properties. And hydrophobic means like if you put water on something, it kind of beads up into little balls. Hydrophilic means if you put water on it, it flattens out. So it is so easy to clean this because the water flattens out and gets under any dirt, grime, or any particle on that surface, and you can just easily wipe it away. So here are some examples of it. You can see some of it has the marbled veining that people are looking for. Here's a great example of it being used outside, and you see the texture there on that. A bunch of different colors, bunch of different textures. They have the whitest white on the market. So they have an absolute white that is the whitest surfacing that you can get. And again, that comes in a satin. That comes in 7 different finishes, including a satin. Again, you can kind of see a little bit of that texture there. There's also a material on the market called PaperStone that doesn't have that petroleum binder as well. It's made from recycled paper. So this is one for your real organic customer that wants something different, but they want something that's warm to the touch, not cold like stone. This you can cut on site. You can see here there's an integrated drain board with this as well. Really DIY friendly. So we have a lot of people do their own countertops with this. We also recommend fabricators, but it holds up like stone, but it's made from paper. So basically it's paper fibers are like little tubes, and this is those little tubes filled in with this proprietary resin that just encapsulates them and makes it really, really strong. So this material, you could have it for 10 years, go back in, give it a light sand, and it looks brand new. And again, warm to the touch, really, really interesting material made in the US. So that's something that people might ask for too, is they want something made in the US. There's not a lot of countertop materials that are made in the US. A lot of the stone comes from Italy or overseas. Okay, that's the kind of countertop side of things. We have other options too, but those are just 2 primary ones that give you a good idea of what we're talking about. Instead of pink, fiberglass insulation. I mentioned the chemically sensitive people. Fiberglass has a lot of, you have to wear gloves to install it. If you're wearing a mask and gloves to install it, you probably want to, think about what's in it. Also, some of the spray foam insulations, there's a lot of studies out now that those are not good. So, there's a lot of research around that. We're happy to kind of give you some insight on that, but that's another one to be very careful about using. Use blue denim insulation or wool insulation. These are slightly more expensive, but they are not going to emit chemicals. In fact, wool is so interesting in the fact that it actually pulls formaldehyde out of the air and it acts as an air filter. So wool fibers, I mean, think about sheep running around outside, right? Like they're weatherproof. And that's what happens with the wool. It actually regulates their body temperature and their moisture within their body and stuff like that. It's doing the same in the walls of your house. So wool fibers have evolved over, thousands and thousands of years to be the ideal fiber for, insulation, because they were insulating these bodies. So wool insulation actually regulates the humidity within the wall cavity. It pulls formaldehyde, which is in every piece of wood you have, there's formaldehyde in it. The wool insulation actually removes that from the wall. So for chemically sensitive people specifically, and then people who just want, a little extra performance in their wall cavity, wool insulation is great. And, I've had people who just put it in the nursery. So they're having a new baby and they just, want it around the nursery walls because they just want to feel, better about the air quality in that room. And it's nice because it's not an all or nothing deal. If you put some wool is better than no wool. It's not like you have to choose just one thing for the whole home. Both they're flame resistant, resist moisture, no chemicals, so much nicer to work with. People have a much nicer time working with this, and they can be reused. So the wool insulation is really interesting because we sell so much wool insulation, and a lot of it, is to residential, but a lot of it is for vans. So if someone's riding around, a lot of people are doing this van life, van upfits, and they're, using the wool insulation in those spaces because they're small, and they want to be in the healthiest environment they can because it is so small. Okay, instead of laminate, I know laminate can be quite popular, but the problem is worn surfaces, you have to rip up the whole floor. You can't even spot replace a laminate. So they're very heavy in petroleum, susceptible to moisture damage. I'm sure you've seen that before. And then they can be hard and noisy because they're a direct attach typically on a floor. And again, there could be chemicals present in that laminate. So look at cork flooring. People typically think of cork as just, kind of wine bottle cork, but it's not. There's really cool designs. There's dark cork, there's light cork, there's colorful cork, patterned like I just showed you. It's sustainably harvested. Cork is the bark off the cork tree. So these cork trees grow in Portugal, and the bark has to be harvested like every 7 years. So they take the cork off the tree, and then they pop corks out of it for your wine bottles, my wine bottles, lots of them. And then they take the leftover bark and they grind it up and they make this flooring out of it. Acoustically, it is the best performing floor that you could have. There are some 100-year-old installations in libraries, places where they want like just that quiet or something warm underfoot. So cork underfoot has great thermal properties. And then also for like a floor to floor noise, this is great because high heels, think about high heels walking on cork. I mean, you're not gonna, get a lot of that between floor noise. It's also hypoallergenic, again, for the people that may be chemically sensitive. And then it's available as LVT. LVT, luxury vinyl tile, one of the biggest misnomers ever. There's nothing really luxury about it. But there's a cork core LVT. So cork core LVT is like the ideal. You get that, the economics of LVT. You get the cleanability and the durability of the LVT, but you have a cork interlayer, which gives you all those acoustic properties. So this is really one of the nicest flooring products that you can get if you're going into an LVT situation. And these cork products, they're all $6 and below. So a lot of them are in the $2.50, $3, $4 range. It's not that much more expensive than your, traditional flooring. So here's a typical cork that you're used to seeing. Here's a cool installation where they've, done some patterning. Okay, so that's cork flooring. And then instead of traditional solid surfaces, a lot of people are looking at solid surface now because solid surface, you can get that seamless appearance because the seams actually are chemically bonded so that you don't get grout lines. So with solid surface, you don't need to, see grout. You don't have that backsplash problem where the water gets up there and it starts to turn brown. But traditional solid surface that you're used to hearing about, we always call it like, your grandmother's countertop, Corian, some of those, solid surface was kind of bigger in, 70s and 80s. They have almost like a milky appearance. They don't have that pigment saturation. So they kind of look dated in a lot of ways. And a lot of them have little or no recycled content. And they get tossed at the end of their life. But modern solid surfaces, specifically Durat modern solid surface. Durat is D-U-R-A-T. This is a material that you can absolutely make your own. It's got high recycled content. It can be 100% recycled. It's made in the USA, and it's colorful and customizable. And I don't know if you guys can see me on the screen here, but in the event that you can, here's some different custom colors that we've had people do over the years. Like they take blue with speckles, or they pick bright oranges and these solid purples, and they just really, and even your more neutral grays and things like that. But there's 70 standard colors of Durat, and some of them are really playful, and then you can customize. So if you have a client that's like, I want pink countertops with purple specks, this is the only material you're going to be able to do that with. So it is really kind of a fun one to play with if you've got a really interesting, client or customer, and they just want to do something different. This is the kind of thing you can recommend to them. Here's some other examples. There's more terrazzo looking ones. I know that's very popular right now. But like I said, it's just really fun to play with. It's made in the USA. And it's got a lot of character and identity to it. Okay, so instead of traditional wallpaper, so we know, a lot of people don't use wallpaper, but if they do, it can be messy, you can't reuse it, it's hard to maintain, it can get dated, and it can be affected, by light and shadow. Organoid Surfaces are a product that we carry, and it's 100% organic materials. So you can see here on that back wall, that is alpine hay. So it's alpine hay laid up on like a self-adhesive wallpaper. And those little white circle things you see on the wall back there, those are daisy heads. So it's really, really bringing nature into a space. It has a subtle scent to it. The binder that is used to bring the material all together is all natural. I mean, you could, the material's made in Austria, and the owners of the company will always tell you that you could make tea out of it if you wanted to. They don't recommend it, but it's really an interesting material, and it's a great way to bring nature into a space. So if you're really looking for something unique to bring into a space, Organoid is great for that. And they also have a light collection where you can actually, it's probably about half to 1/3 of the organic material, and then the back is just translucent, so you can backlight that and do some really interesting things with it. And you can also, customize it as well. So here's some examples. This is red cornflower. These are leaves. Those are the skeletons of leaves. So those are actual leaves that are laid up on this panel. Here's moss. A lot of people want a moss wall, but there's so much maintenance and it's not very durable. This is a great way to get that moss in a much more durable, easily cleanable fashion. And these, again, come in giant rolls or sheets, or laid up, on a HPL or a high pressure laminate. But there's a lot of different ways to kind of incorporate them. This is coffee. These are actual coffee grounds laid up into a panel. So you can kind of imagine this at, like your sort of boutique coffee shop in your neighborhood having their whole facade of their, reception area be made out of this like coffee bean material. So, and it smells like coffee. It's really good. And then here's the alpine hay I mentioned. All right, so a lot of different neat materials that you can be bringing to people or just knowing about. So if you get questions, you know where to send them. Materials matter for how they look. We all know that, and we want the durability too. But there's this incoming aspect of health that people are going to start asking about. And there's always been this belief that we have to compromise on beauty if we want something recycled, or if we want something organic, it's not going to be durable. But those compromises are no longer there, and we've spent a lot of time curating a collection of products that address all three of those and give you beautiful, durable, and healthy solutions. Our homes are more important to us now than ever. We spend a lot of time there. My kids are there for the next semester. And, we want those spaces to be healthy, clean, and, as inspiring, honestly, as possible. So working from home is here to stay. And, we're gonna do that. We don't know what capacity. It's not gonna be forever. But you guys may see, and I'd love to hear from people on the call, if you're starting to see people looking for more of these, for more out of the office spaces when they're looking for homes. Are they asking for, more in the office? Is that a criteria? Are they renovating areas to make new offices? I've seen 2 houses in my neighborhood where they've, blown out one, wide open story and closed it off so that, the other spouse could have an office. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys are seeing too. And then lastly, these guys graduated about 10 years ago, and they've got enough money now to buy houses, and they're smart, and they were taught about the environment, the impact on the environment. They all have hydro flasks. They have glass straws in their, backpack. So they are eco-savvy, and they are going to be asking these questions, and anything that, we can do to help you guys address those questions, we are happy to do that. We are an educator first. Yes, we sell building materials, but we believe in education first, and just equipping more people out there to know how to answer these questions so that we can help, ultimately get people what they want. So that's what I have. And if you want more healthy home tips, our Instagram is always filled with really cool products and really cool installs. Or you can email us at info@karagreen.com, or I'm Jessica@karagreen.com. And we have a blog. So we have a blog that, check it out, read our blog. If you have a blog and you want to, collaborate, I know you guys often will write, have really interesting perspectives on real estate, and we're happy to kind of promote and share your posts as well. And then we also have a podcast, Build Green, Live Green, and we're always looking for guests on our podcast. So if you have any recommendations there as well, we cover a lot of topics, some of the ones we've discussed here today, some of the products, and certainly biophilic design in the home.
Wow, really cool stuff. Thanks for that presentation. Just a reminder to everybody, you can just drop any questions you have in the chat, or if you want to share some information. I know some people have been chiming in and saying that they've found a lot of clients are asking for office space, enclosed offices, or maybe even a bigger home to facilitate that type of setup. So it sounds like that's certainly a trend that we're seeing as well.
Right.
All right, well, we've already gotten a few questions in, so I'm going to start going through some of these. The first one we got: what minerals are used in the sintered stone application?
Yeah, so they're called kaolins, Kaolins, and feldspars. So they're naturally mined minerals that give they're often used in clays and porcelains. So similar to what's used in clays and porcelains, but the actual bonding process of fusing those minerals together is what kind of makes a sintered stone unique, because it's begun 2 stories underground in a process called vibrocompression under vacuum. So you can imagine what that means is there's like basically a rectangle of minerals, and they start shaking it, compressing it, and sucking all the air out at the same time. And then they run it through a really long kiln, and it binds everything together. It's really, really durable.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
The next question, is the PaperStone product stain resistant?
Yes. So I have it at my house. It's my kitchen table, and I have 3 kids that are, they've been, using that table since I think they were all under 4. But it has held up very, very well. It doesn't stain because that process I mentioned, where those paper tubes get encapsulated by the phenolic resin, it makes it a completely compact mass. So no, it doesn't stain. We also have it as our countertop here at the office, and we use the lightest color, and it's held up really, really well. And we have a lot of happy hours, or we used to, and they involved red wine. So I think, and there's a lot of Indian food, so that's turmeric, and that's the hardest thing to get out. So we haven't had any issues with that staining either.
Right. So we can mark that down as some rigorous field testing.
Yes, exactly.
The next question we got was, how does the cost look for some of the products you talked about today versus some of the usual suspects people have seen?
Yeah, so some of the products I mentioned, like Granite and Quartz, those are really economical because there's so many suppliers, and it's unfortunate because some of those suppliers are not trustworthy, and then things go wrong, and people aren't happy with that. But the Lapitech specifically, I would say it's a premium to Quartz, but maybe 20 to 30%. And the PaperStone's an interesting one because it's very economical. People typically use 2 centimeter for the PaperStone, and that runs around $20 a square foot for the material. When it goes to a fabricator, it can cost more, but if someone wants to do it themselves, then that becomes, a really economical option. So it kind of depends. We've worked really hard with our fabricators to make sure that, they're, giving good pricing to customers because they want more business. So if they're offering good pricing, we're going to keep using them. So, I think, they're all going to be a slight premium, but the performance premium is going to be far worth it. And I would say even specifically with the quartz, if you're using a Cambria quartz or, a Silestone or Caesar stone, you're at the same pricing basically for the Silestone or for the Sintered stone like Lapitech. It might be a little bit of a premium, but not much.
Great. Then we have a question from the chat. Have you seen, with installing some of these products that it leads to an increase in the home's value?
I think it does. And I think that this is where I challenge kind of the builders and the owners is to say, you want to tell that story. People want to hear a story. When I'm in my kitchen and I'm entertaining people, I want to be like, this is Sintered stone. This is, this was invented by the people that invented quartz 30 years ago. They saw a need for the new generation of the best man-made stone. This will hold up to anything. I can put a hot pot on it. I'm sure people get asked that question all the time. Can I put a hot pot on it? Can I put a hot pot on my countertop? The answer is always no until now. Sintered stone is the first product that you can actually say, yeah, you can put a hot pot on it. I put hot pots on my PaperStone all the time. And I have had no issues. So yeah, I think if you can tell the story, people are going to get really excited because I can go into any house in this area and there's granite and there's quartz and there's crappy hardwood floors. I need new floors, so I'm a little sensitive. But I think being able to tell the story behind the products is what's going to increase the value. If you're going to let the product sit there and try to let it sell itself, it really is about almost having like a flyer sitting there, giving a background on the material and get people really excited about it. I think it attaches people to the home.
Right. And I think for, the people in here who deal with multifamily, it's probably a big consideration too. If you have something that's more durable in there, might not be something that you have to replace from a bad renter.
Exactly. Well, that's true. And the PaperStone's I love PaperStone for multifamily because you can refinish it multiple times. So if someone goes in there and they decided they didn't want to use a cutting board and they just cut on their PaperStone top, that's fine. You can go back in, light sand, and it's brand new. You're not replacing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that a lot. Let's see, the next question here. It looks like this person was on your website a little bit and they saw the section on soundproofing. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about some of the soundproofing options you've seen?
So soundproofing is always an interesting one. I used to work for a company that had a product called Quiet Rock. It was soundproof drywall. And so much of soundproofing is about how you install it. So there's two types of noise. One is the noise that goes from one room to the other. And then the other type of noise is the noise that bounces around in the room. So if it's noisy in a room, you have high ceilings or something, we have a product called Echo Panel that has a bunch of different options. It's actually what this is made out of behind me. So this is actually sound control in the conference room. So that is Echo Panel. And it is it's recycled plastic bottles built into panels or tiles or all these different systems. You can suspend them from the ceiling like clouds or decoratively as baffles. But anywhere you're trying to mitigate the sound in a open space, because we all know that everyone wanted these huge open spaces and it's so noisy because you've got these polished concrete floors and rugs are now dirt traps, so you need to be able to put that soft stuff somewhere. And Echo Panel gives you a great way to do it. We cut these into puzzle pieces, but you can use the full panels. They cut them into a bunch of different shapes. There's 3D shapes and clouds. So that's great for in-room sound control. The insulation I mentioned, the wool and the cotton insulation, those are great for wall-to-wall transfer because they're going to help dampen the sound because they're much denser materials than fiberglass, which is just, thin strands of glass. So So those materials are great for in the wall. But you know, soundproof is really difficult. I can't tell you the number of times when I was selling this soundproof drywall that if you don't tape the seams correctly, if you don't, you know, if you don't go from the floor all the way up to the roof deck with your soundproofing, that top is just an air gap and the sound goes right over it. So it's a very technical thing to actually get soundproof, but you can sound mitigate quite well. And certainly within the room, the Cure Echo panel is perfect for that.
Yeah. I confess that person on the website was me. I'm always very interested in soundproofing, and you know, I like to play guitar. I like to get that amp up, and so the
Well,
little
that's
things
funny,
that I
'cause we
can
had,
do here and there to.
when we had our Quiet Rock product, we actually had a product that was Quiet Rock THX. So it was
Okay.
designed for like home theaters. It was like this thick, and it had all these layers of the soundproofing material in it. It was neat.
Okay, very cool. All right, well, I'll check that out later. So the next question we have, the demand for biophilic, am I saying that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, once I put it down,
Yep.
I need to make sure I said it correctly. Is there an interest in real or artificial, a little bit of both? And is there, you know, some like practical differences that you see?
Yeah. Okay. So I think so for biophilic, you know, and I think one of our handouts at the end of this, and Rachel, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of our handouts is the 14 principles of biophilic design, and that will give you guidelines exactly on this topic. So there is nature in the space. That is literal, right? Like there's a plant, there's a water feature, you know, there's a moss wall. And then there's nature of the space. And that is like feng shui kind of stuff, right? Like our most comfortable position as human beings is being as, I think it's Savannah. Is it Savannah? Savannah. Yeah. And it's being protected and being able to see out. So you're protected from behind, but you can see everything that's happening. I mean, you know, the people like me that go into a restaurant or used to, and you always sit with your back to the wall, right? You want to be able to see everything and not have anyone come up behind you. So that's our most
Right.
comfortable position as human beings. So designing spaces, people are starting to design that way, and that's biophilic. And then the last pillar of biophilic design is, what is it? Natural analogs, yes. And that is taking things that emulate nature. So they're not, you know, it's not a tree stump, but it's a stool that looks like a tree stump, you know? So kind of incorporating some of those things, like having like blue LED lighting that makes the shape of a wave. That's a natural analog. It looks like a wave, but it's not. It just evokes that thought. And in our conference room, we have the echo panel clouds suspended from the ceiling. So it looks like a cloud, but it's not a cloud, but it evokes that feeling. So we'll give you guys a handout on that, on all the different ways you can think about biophilic design.
Yeah, great. So we actually just got a question that is a little bit more similar to the soundproofing stuff that we were talking about and some of those tiles. They're asking how effective some of the eco panels would be to mitigate like road noise, or what if there's a lot of glass windows? Could it still work in a space like that?
Yeah, so that's where I would just say no. I would love to say yes, but I think that, you know, the transmitting material in that scenario, sound is just vibration. And your glass is going to vibrate. Unless you put the echo panel on the glass, it's still going to vibrate, and that vibration is what's hitting your ears. So it can't stop the vibrations from getting to you unless you're literally putting it over them. So, you know, it's not a good solution for that. You know, that's why they put up those giant sound walls, because it's just huge amounts of mass. So when the sound waves get to those walls, that walls literally absorb them and they don't make their way to your home. But if it's just glass between you and the noise, it's hard to mitigate that.
Right. Let's see, next question. So the Cork flooring, this person wants to know if it's something that's literally the floor that you're walking on, or if it's something that goes underneath.
So it is literally the floor that so it can be both actually. So it is either literally the floor that you're walking on, like this is the surface, this is 100% cork. There's nothing else in here. But the Cork Core LVT, it's luxury, well, it's like a durability layer, then the tile, and then a cork interlayer, and then it's balanced at the bottom with another layer. So with flooring, just as a recommendation, we were having this conversation earlier, it's really important. If you have a flooring, it has to be a balanced flooring or it could cup. So just be careful that you're looking for that. But yeah, the LVT, it's just, the cork is the interlayer in that scenario. But, you know, typically it is, it's actually what you're walking on, and it's so soft. It's my floor right here. You know, it's super comfortable. We use it for trade show booths because it just keeps everyone from being, you know, miserable at the end of it. So, you know, yeah, we really enjoy the cork.
Great. Okay, I think we have run to the end of the questions. We got one more. So if you got any final questions, we're getting close to the end, so make sure you submit them. All right, next question. What would you recommend to soundproof an existing ceiling from an upper floor?
So when you're walking on a floor and it's connected to the joists upstairs, every impact on that floor is going to go right through your joists. And you have to decouple the floor from the ceiling, from the joists, for it not to get within, for that sound not to get within the walls. So that is a fact. That is conservation of energy, you know, equal and opposite reaction. So that energy is getting, you know, nails. You step on the floor, those nails send it right into those joists. So that's why there's floating floors, because the underlayment, it's meant to decouple that floor from the joists so that you don't get that noise. So it's a tough one. You can stick some denser insulation in the ceiling and you'll get a little bit of performance, but you know, those sound waves go right down the joist into that drywall in the ceiling.
Yeah. All right, we've got another one here. Could you add cork to a kitchen floor? So like, would you use it in the kitchen? I'm thinking, they're thinking in terms of spills, things like that.
Yeah, so cork is, I mean, think about cork in a wine bottle, right? That whole cork isn't red, right? You know, it turns red after sitting there for maybe, you know, 5 or 6 years, but it really holds up well. So you're not gonna, you know, the cork particles, again, this is, we have a course on biomimicry, and it's how building materials have learned from nature. But there are building materials that, you know, are natural materials. It survives outdoors as tree bark. I mean, you know, it's not getting, you know, stained. It's pest resistant. You know, it holds up really well. And what cork does when it gets wet, it swells. It swells shut. So joints swell shut, and it just doesn't absorb water, right? So it's a really interesting material in terms of how it performs, because it holds up so well. And then you can also refinish cork. So there's some really neat library installations, again, like I said, where they've refinished it 150 years later, and it looks, you know, amazing. So yeah, it's a really neat material. And the cork that we carry is called Expanco cork, and it is the only 1/2 inch thick cork on the market. So it's only 1/2 inch thick cork you can get. So this is really the gold standard in cork flooring. But yeah, I saw another question pop up about a luxury look. And yeah, so they just came out with a stained cork collection, which is really, really beautiful. There's grays and whites, you know, just all different stained cork colors. And then they have patterns that you can put together. So you could, you know, basically get, you know, squares and then, you know, diamonds, and you could create this whole intricate pattern. So you can really get some, you know, neat looks with the dark colors, light colors, and there's a medium, and you can play them off each other and do some really interesting designs.
Great. Yeah, somebody wrote in, Brenda said that she has cork floors in her kitchen. It's been 10 years and it's great.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Brenda.
And Brenda also asks, do you have a recommendation for basement flooring?
Basement flooring. Yeah, I mean, that's one where, I mean, I think, you know, looking at, you know, like an LVT or like, you know, just something that holds up to moisture, you know, just carpet, no. You know, as far as, you know, anything that we carry a skate ramp material called gator skins that could be suitable for a flooring application like that. But I really think that, you know, there's rubber floors. So Expanco, who makes cork, also makes a really great product called XCR5, which is rubber in cork. So you get that performance of rubber like you would in a gym floor. but it's got the cork interleaved. So you also get the acoustic and the softness underfoot. So that's a really interesting product to look at as well.
Very cool. Very cool. What is the Gator product you'd
Gator
mentioned?
Skins is a skate ramp material. So PaperStone makes
Okay.
a product called Gator Skins, and they needed someone to carry it for them on this side of the country. And my warehouse manager Ned is a skater from the 80s, and he got really excited about carrying it. So it's a material we sell a lot of, but it's really great. It's a really great durable surface, so it holds up a lot. And we just, when everyone got to stay at home, a lot of parents decided to build their kids and themselves skate ramps. So it became very popular for a while earlier this year.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, I think we have officially hit the end of our questions here.
All right.
So I think we can wrap up a little bit early here. So
Great.
thank you again. This was really interesting.
Yeah,
And
thank you, guys.
I think it's, things are just changing, like crazy this year.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the interesting trends that people can really look towards to 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think this is great. So we will be emailing out a copy of today's recording, a few additional resources that might be helpful. And for those of you who are interested in joining us for some of the RCA programming, again, we're going to be doing an RCA track with some different speakers. On January 25th, we'll have some registration information there. And we plan on doing these types of webinars for our RCA folks, and of course, everybody else who wants to join quarterly. So again, thank you, Jessica. And
thanks for having me.
Everyone has a safe and healthy rest of the day.